You know how it goes, right? The second two huge stars are even like in the same room, suddenly there are rumors everywhere, social media just explodes.
Oh, absolutely. It's this constant cycle between what everyone thinks is happening and, well, what might actually be going on.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder what happens when all that public noise runs smack into some actual insider info. Okay, let's unpack this. So today, we're diving into all the buzz around Tom Brady and Sofia Vergara. It's been impossible to miss, hasn't it?
Totally. The are they or aren't there headlines are everywhere.
And the reports seem to say completely different things. It leaves you kind of scratching your head about what's really going on with them.
What's fascinating here is just how fast those stories take off. Often before we, get the full picture. So our mission today is basically to cut through all that speculation. We want to bring some clarity using a pretty recent and exclusive source. It's from TMZ, published July 9th, 2025.
Okay, a direct source. That's what we need.
Exactly. We're going to look at what the source actually says.
Yeah.
And maybe just as importantly, what it doesn't say. Not just repeating the popular narrative.
And what it reports is, well, it's specific. And honestly, it really pushes back against that simple, oh, they're dating story you might have picked up. It's almost like, you get these puzzle pieces. At first glance, they seem to make one picture. But when you look really closely at those specific pieces the source gives us, you realize the picture is way more nuanced. So let's try and piece it together.
Okay, let's do it.
All right, so straight away, the source draws a really critical line. It confirms, yes, Tom Brady and Sofia Vergara are both single, and yes, they are hanging out. That part's true.
Okay, so far so good. Common ground there.
But here's the main point. The sources are definitive. They say, quote, they are not dating, and it's not a romance. That's word for word.
Wow, okay. Not dating, not a romance. Pretty unambiguous.
Right. But that immediately clashes with other reports floating around that do call it a summer romance.
Yeah, I've seen those.
And our insider sources, they apparently called that description ridiculous.
Ridiculous. Strong word. So if it's not a romance, what does the source say it is? It calls it a summer fling. And apparently it's brand new, like just getting started. Maybe only a week old when this report came out.
A fling, not a romance. Okay.
And that difference feels really important here. A fling, suggests something casual, maybe short term, and definitely not a serious committed thing.
Right.
It feels like the source is being really careful with that language, maybe managing expectations.
That makes sense. And this fling, apparently it kicked off with some seriously famous company around.
Oh, yeah.
The source gets into the details of their recent trip through Europe. They were part of this celebrity group tour.
Okay.
Think about this. A 2-night trip on a super yacht. It launched from Rome.
A super yacht.
Yeah.
Nice.
Who else was there?
Get this list. Martha Stewart, Kendall Jenner, Naomi Campbell, Kate Hudson, Patrick Schwarzenegger, Anitta, Tessa Thompson. And interestingly, Irina Shayk, one of Tom's former flings, was actually there too. Wow. Okay, Irina Shayk too. That adds a layer. And it's those kinds of details, like who else was there, that probably fueled all the initial speculation, right?
Exactly.
The source mentions Tom actually moved his seat on the yacht specifically to sit next to Sofia at dinner.
Oh, okay. See, that's the kind of detail people notice.
For sure. And Sofia even posted a picture, right, of them at a table together.
Yeah, that's in the source too. And J Balvin came by, said hello, gave her a little kiss on the forehead.
Right. And these little public moments, if you don't have the context from the source saying it's not a romance, well, you can see how they'd easily get blown up into something bigger.
Totally.
That's why the source seems so insistent on clarifying, the actual nuanced reality.
Yeah.
The fact that others were there, including Irina, it supports that group hang kind of vibe the source is hinting at.
Yeah, that context is key. And speaking of context, the source gives a bit on each of them individually.
Okay.
For Tom Brady, it notes he hasn't really had a steady public thing since the divorce from Gisele Bündchen.
Right, and Gisele has very publicly moved on with Joaquin Valente.
Exactly. The source also mentions Tom was recently in Europe for Jeff Bezos' wedding in Venice. Said he was one of the bigger party animals there.
Huh, okay.
But interestingly, it also clarified that scene was more of a bro fest than a hookup scene, which kind of fits this casual, not super romantic picture.
Yeah, it keeps it consistent. What about Sofia?
It mentions she also stopped in Ibiza. And get this detail. Tom was apparently seen there too, but crucially, on a different yacht. And he was with his 12-year-old daughter.
Oh, wow. Separate yachts and with his daughter. That definitely reinforces the not a couple framing, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah. And this leads us to some really telling language the source uses near the end.
Like what?
It says something like, how long this thing lasts, however, is anyone's guess.
Uh-huh. Leaving it open-ended.
Totally. And then the final line is something like, it will be interesting to see if this fling turns into something more. Tom and Sofia are both super hot. Stay tuned.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Classic. Stay tuned.
Right. But it's not just filler. That phrasing, if this fling turns into something more, it really hammers home the idea that right now it's just a fling. It's nascent, it's undefined.
Not a done deal romance.
Exactly. It leaves the door open, sure, but it clearly defines the current situation. The source is basically telling everyone, watch this space, but don't assume anything yet.
So, putting it all together, what does this mean for you listening if you're trying to follow this stuff?
Yeah.
I think for anyone keeping up with the, the whirlwind of celebrity news, understanding how these sources use specific words is so important.
Absolutely critical.
It helps you cut through the noise, right? To see the difference between, say, a casual connection this summer fling and a committed romance.
Yeah.
It's about noticing that careful language, even in entertainment news, knowing that just hanging out doesn't automatically mean dating.
It's about precision, really. Even when talking about who's seeing whom, it matters.
So let's recap the main point then. Our source, this TMZ exclusive, it strongly suggests Tom Brady and Sofia Vergara are having a summer fling.
But crucially.
But it emphatically says it is not a romance. And that distinction, as we've kind of picked apart today, that seems to be the whole story right now.
And this really brings up an important question for you to think about after this.
Okay.
Given how very specific this source is in drawing a line between a summer fling and a romance, what does that actually tell us? Like about how we define relationships now, especially when they play out in public under the celebrity spotlight. And why is using that exact phrasing, fling versus romance, maybe so important? Either to Tom and Sofia themselves or, to the media outlets reporting on them.
That's a great point. Is fling just the modern way to say publicly, look, we're seeing what happens, don't label it serious yet?
Be definitely something to mull over.
For sure. Well, thanks for digging into these details with us today. Always keep looking for those surprising facts. Keep questioning what you think you know. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.